Hello everyone, this is Masami from Zenshin Institute. Thank you for joining me on my monthly EnergyBody Checkup, and this is for the October of 2020. Last month was all about integrating of your brain-mind, heart-mind, gut-mind, and we had worked on number 1, processing your old patterns, old emotional debris, outdated thinking, and so on and so forth. And number 2, we talked about being proactive about what you wish to manifest and create daily practice and be disciplined about them. And number 3, we talked about participate. So get your senses like your touch and your smell and your taste and your guides and intuition and chakras to participate, integrate, and come together and engage in your life and your overall health, finance, and your well-being. And also doing your part and find ways to collaborate with others as well as your own inner body, heart, and brain. And number 4, we talked about preparing. So preparing for March of 2021. We talked about what do you wish to see happen in your world with your goals and your desires, and to prepare your daily habits also. So not just to keep that focus for your March 2021, but your daily habits of maybe preparing really good food so that you're nourished, or get good sleep. And how do you get good sleep? Is to prepare your bedtime rituals and routines and preparing your environment for a better flow. So those are the things we talked about. And then the number 5, the last thing we talked about was patience. And we are in the liminal space, and we still are. So this in-between space that we're in, we're not quite sure where we're headed. We know we're headed to something new, but we're not certainly going back to what it used to be. So in the liminal space, we still need to remain patient with what's trying to unfold, what's coming, and what needs to be processed. So staying patient is something that we talked about. And then work on trusting that you are on the right path, even though you might feel that the things are moving too slowly at times. And, to stay flexible with it, because we're no longer just moving in a linear fashion in terms of the clock or the time. So stay flexible with it and be open to surprises also. And I think that this last category, the patience, is something that we really need to continue with it in the month of October. Just because that we are now in October, it doesn't mean that you can maybe cross off all these steps that we talked about in September and not revisit them or remind yourself of these steps. And I think the patience is something that we will need to revisit, readdress, and use it as one of your tools in October to get through pretty bumpy month that we are welcoming. Because the more you can integrate with your brain, heart, and gut, the better you can navigate the terrain of October. So it's worth going back to these 5 things we talked about in September and make sure that you didn't miss the steps, or if you neglected one of those, or maybe you didn't quite get around to doing the 5th step or 4th step or something like that, I would recommend you do that. And so let's get going on the month of October a little bit more now. So in order to navigate this new ecosystem, I feel like I'm just going to call it a new ecosystem of October. And it's unfamiliar landscape, and the ground that is constantly feeling like shifting and shaking and quivering and fluctuating. You want to not only work on finding your center, but also have enough energy and enough fuel and enough stamina saved inside you. And I will talk more about this and the need for energy reserves a little bit later. I first wanted to share my intuitive take on October. And when I tuned into the month of October, the words that came to me and the sensation that I felt in my body were actually earthquakes and aftershocks. And these two words may, actually shock you a little bit. And maybe for some of you, you might say, yeah, it feels like, my grounds are shaking already and things are a little bit up and down already. But when I tuned into it, it reminded me actually of my own experience with the aftershocks. After my hometown was struck by 2 earthquakes, my husband Chris and I were able to go back to my hometown to take care of the wreckage of the home that I spent my childhood in. And my father was in a coma at that time due to the earthquakes. And then we saw and we walked through the city that was devastated also. And after the earthquakes, that's when we were experiencing every day about 200 aftershocks. And these are one of those things that come and go all throughout the day. Some of them are, just a light shake, to some of them are pretty strong shakes that you could feel it in your body. And some of them are microscopic so that you may not feel as much. But the reason why I'm bringing this aftershocks and the impact of that is that when the world is shaking kind of all the time right now, some days are a little bit less and some days are a little bit more, and some of us feel more of it than the others. But the fact is that we are on the ground that is constantly moving and shifting and fluctuating. And it's hard to find a way to ground ourselves and settle into it. And it's energetically very exhausting to our whole entire system. So this is when it becomes so important for all of us to be able to take care of our own health, especially our energy, and then how to reserve some of the energy. And, when to rest, and knowing when to sleep, and knowing when to hydrate, knowing when to meditate, knowing when to ask for spiritual guidance or support, so you can feel balanced and grounded and even safe. And then also I would even say sane, so you can stay sane. So let's talk about how to navigate the aftershocks and the moving grounds. And these are some of the steps that you can take in October to keep your energy flowing, not getting completely exhausted, and taking care of yourself, because this month is going to be so important in terms of how you are going to finish the year of 2020 in terms of November and December. So first, I wanted to talk about is to check in with your own body for clarity a little bit more. And instead of just asking your mind to decide, always check back into your physical body. And a good place to start is to ask yourself, how present am I in my own physical body? Since October is going to be a month to, expect the unexpected, and, narrative changes and the patterns are shifting. So it's also very important that you check back into your body and not get too rigid in, well, this one, used to work for me, or I did this the last 2 months, so I'm just going to continue doing it, or I have always done it this way. I would just question those kind of thoughts and say, okay, well, but does it work for my own body? Because, your mind may have a different idea about what is right for it right now. But what I'm seeing already is that your body might be saying something else. And so to maybe more integrate the mind and the body is to, for example, like if you're testing your supplements, is to open the bottle cap and then smell the supplements and maybe take a tiny bite out of it, and or capsules, open it, just put a little bit, sprinkle it onto your tongue, and then just taste that, or even hold the supplements in your hand and place them, after you taste them, and if you're holding it, place it against your maybe lower chakras instead of right at the sternum, your heart center. Let the body decide in terms of maybe a lower chakra making that decision. So first and second chakra area, maybe right around the belly button area, might be a good place to test yourself on, is this supplement good for me right now? And ask the body to answer. And another thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of really incorporating your physical body into the decision and get the clarity through the body is to pay attention to how much of your masculine practice or masculine approach versus feminine approach are not balanced, or are they balanced? I'm seeing, when I work with clients, I notice that there's been a lot of, I call them the masculine approach to health, which is maybe, your way of looking at foods or health is a lot to do with the detox, or focusing too much on the cleansing or stripping or removing, eliminating and restricting. And these actions can be, or these approaches can be helpful at times. But right now I'm starting to really feel that there's need for more of a feminine approach. And the feminine approach will be in, as the season changes, is to maybe bring more of a nourishments back, adding more joy back into eating, maybe adding more colors back in, varieties back into your eating. And then less emphasis on restrictions and limitations that will create barriers and walls around you. Because, ultimately you cannot heal the imbalances in the world unless and until you heal your inner imbalances. And then that's usually, especially, is about your own masculine and feminine energies and our own take on these things and the practices that we do day to day. And, this doesn't mean that you get to just say, I'm going to eat whatever I want, and I'm going to start eating packaged foods and, foods that are just not nourishing, and I'm going to do whatever feels tasty to me. And instead of thinking that way, it is about really feeding your body, mind, spirit, and listening into your body, and ask yourself, or maybe, just approach this by saying, how can I feed myself with more beauty? How can I feed myself with more love and light and high frequency foods? So you can ultimately nourish yourself. And we all know that what's inside is what's outside. So as you bring more love and high frequencies and light and beauty and nourishments back into yourself, that is going to inevitably shine outward. And particularly all of us are light workers and intuitives and empaths, so we know that how much that can be expanded out into the world when you take care of your inner needs. So focus on adding to your whole being and not stripping from your being. And next, let's talk about build your inner resources and create an energy savings account. So take a moment right now and just ask yourself, what am I doing to put more into my own energy savings account? And also, I think it's important to just say, what are some of the things that fuel me, and what are some things that will strip me of my own energy? And get very clear on that. Maybe get a piece of paper, draw a line in the middle, and write down some of the items that will fuel you and that will increase your energy savings account. And those are the resources that you want to put back in. And these are, on the other side, write down the things that are depleting you, and it's withdrawing the energy from your energy savings account. And for example, things that would add to your savings account would be daily practice that you have been working on through September, maybe even August. It's like a physical, mental, emotional related practices that will uplift you and it will fuel you with nourishment. Obviously, things like daily meditation, prayers, gratitudes, journaling, breathing methods, breathing techniques that will settle you and ground you. And like the hand or the finger meditation that I guided you through on my Monday with Masami video that I did on September 28th, that's something you can look back and listen to it and see if you could do some of those practices. And I think another important thing about how to put more back into your energy savings account this month, because you really want to build this savings account up this month, is to kind of notice how far you have come this year. It's been a crazy year. We all know that. It's been a very challenging year for all of us. So just pause for a moment, even maybe stop the recording and just pause and say, how far have I come this year? And then just take a moment and appreciate that. And notice how far you have come in your own personal journey. And that goes for not just this year, but just in your own personal journey of difficulties and challenges that you've been through in your entire life. Because it's important to balance your inner critical voice with your inner recognition and personal praise and personal understanding, because that's what is going to put the energy back into your savings account. And, make sure to take the time for your inner growth and healing this month, particularly early on this month. And if you didn't take the time to process your old patterns or emotional debris in September, take the time to do that early on this month. And it's not too late to do this. And it's because it's so important to build as much inner resources and your energy savings account as possible, because you are going to be drawing from that energy savings account in November and December. And we are all going to need a healthy energy savings account to weather the storm. And next is keep the flow going. So keep moving, keep creating flow. However small it is, just don't get stuck. And don't lose your own perspectives on things and your focus. And this means that you are going to do your very best not to get sucked into the drama around you. And actually, important one is to address here is to not to get sucked back into your own drama that is inside you. And the drama inside you is going to be about you not acknowledging your own needs for, say, silence or more rest or time for contemplation or time for more creativity or time to just read or listen to music or just take a nap, getting a little bit more rest and time to reset. And being so hard on yourself with criticism and thoughts and beliefs that are diminishing to your own self and your self-esteem or self-worth, those are the things that are going to create drama in your life inside. And these are the things that will create less energy, more fatigue, and maybe even brain fog, and feels like you're just getting zapped of energy. So you want to just stop and say, okay, how much of this is external drama that I'm picking up? Or how much of this is me, myself, causing my own drama? And so we talk a lot about energy vampires, and in a spiritual communities, we talk about energy vampires often as something a little bit more external, like energy vampire people that you are, associating with, or situations and things like that. But I think it's worth it in October to just stop and say, how am I becoming my own energy vampire at times? And one of the ways to come out of your internal drama is to come back to focusing on how far you have come in your life in a big picture, and how far you have come in your own personal journey. and stop and really feel how incredible you are and how beautiful you are and how loving and lovable you are. And, maybe take time to write down some of your talents and skills and creative thoughts on a piece of paper and really acknowledge the strength and power you possess inside you and how much you have been able to overcome despite the challenges and obstacles. And take the time to acknowledge how truly amazing you are and how truly amazing it is that you are here right now. And put them all together in your energy savings account because we want to keep building that up this month. And you know that you can and you may need to draw from this energy savings account from time to time this month. But don't worry, you're just going to keep building it and building it. And as the outer world, continues to shake and shock us, and then we're standing on the grounds of aftershocks, there will be times that you will just have to say, okay, I'm going to draw from the energy accounts. But always put back what you can so you have the reserves. Okay, and the next is a little bit more practical side of it, but this is the time that we would benefit from starting to eat seasonally. So eat seasonally to support your changes in your bodies and then changes that are coming. And I have personally pretty much drastically actually changed what I'm eating from maybe just the last 2 days or so of September into now, because my body is requiring more fall type of foods. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, you want to start to shift towards spring-based foods. And for me, since I live in the northern hemisphere, I'm starting to shift into more of a warming foods. So, it doesn't always have to be a warm soup or anything, but certainly there's some warming foods and spices that are starting to come back into my diet. And these kind of fall foods for me is certainly grounding, but it is not so grounding to the point that I feel lethargic. And to give you a little bit more example of this is that this is the time of the year that I definitely stop eating salads and lots of raw foods, and I do shift into more of a cooked vegetables, much more, and then using good sea salt and using fall spices like, fall time spices are great, right? Like ginger and turmeric and cinnamon and nutmeg. And foods that support your skin and hair are going to be very important in the fall, in October. And these come a lot from just making sure that you're balancing your fatty acids, so omega-3s, omega-6s, and in your saturated fats. And October is a good month for you to start to increase your omega-3s and some healthy omega-6s. And I really love things like evening primrose oil or black currant oil. And this is the time of the year that I personally stop using coconut oil and then shift it into using more ghee and butter and even some of the saturated fats so that I can prepare my skin and my hair towards the winter season that is coming. And because of the aftershock kind of a situation that we're in this month, your body is going to experience some exhaustions in particularly like places like your lower back or your adrenals. So start shifting your sleep and go to bed, be starting to prepare to go to bed at least around 10 minutes earlier than you were sleeping in September. That's going to be very helpful. And, things like nuts, like walnuts actually are really great. And it's a wonderful time of the year to start to look for walnuts kind of thing to support your adrenals too. And, I did not talk too much about the emotion side of the aftershocks that I experienced back in my home. But definitely some of the words that came to me were disbelief, complete shock, despair, deep sadness, loss and disappointments, and anger. And because these emotions are going to be something that many of us will be experiencing this month, your filtering organs are going to need some support, and maybe actually constant support this month. So, as many of you know, the anger, frustration, and even rage you may feel this month will need to be filtered by your own liver. So, adding liver detoxifying routines or teas or ways of eating and supporting that into your daily practice is going to be a must and extremely helpful this month. And do your very best not to address these feelings using alcohol, because it will simply exacerbate the imbalances in the world that you feel. And that's, one, because alcohol is very, very taxing to your liver. And because many of us will be going through some of these emotions I've listed, like disbelief, shock, and despair, and sadness this month, some of us will feel stiffness in our lower back and maybe neck stiffness also. So you just kind of start to notice like, oh my goodness, I need to move around a little bit more or stand up and stretch. And when you feel that, please listen to your body and do that. And some of us may struggle with actually lungs also. So for instance, you might feel more phlegmy or in addition to increased water retention. So breath work is important, but stay with more gentle nostril breathing rather than fast-paced breathing or heating kind of a breath work that I have been doing and introducing to many of you over the summer. And I would shift into more of a fall and preparing for November and December kind of a breathing exercises that are a lot more gentle and kind to your lungs. And if you notice yourself being impacted by the outer drama more than usual, then I would definitely do a seated, just a nostril breathing, and start with the same counts on inhale, hold the same counts, and then exhale for the same counts, and then hold. So it's called the square breath. You can do 4, 4, 4, 4. So inhale, hold 4 counts, and exhale for 4 counts, and then hold for 4 counts. Something like that, just to kind of balance things out. And lastly, I wanted to remind you to do not lose sight of your lighthouse, your goal, and your desire, and continue to notice and focus on the March 2021. And keep focusing on what expresses your soulful self. And choose to put your attention and energy toward what supports your soul expression. And let's be proactive about staying aligned to who you are and choosing the path that will ultimately inspire you and elevate you and support you in the expression of you. And it's okay to make small course corrections, just constantly, just slightly course correcting. So it's not a giant leap or completely U-turning and doing something different, but just the gentle course corrections. And I think that is going to be a more of a gentle, feminine approach to working on your imprints or your old patterns or your karma or karmic energies, history, and past emotional debris. So that's what I have for you for October. So it's, no doubt that this month is going to be bumpy, and at times it's going to feel intense in its aftershock shaking, but it's also transformative, especially for your inner environment. And you will want to focus on the balance between the supply and demand, meaning your input energy and the output energy. So keep checking your energy savings account to make sure you are depositing more than withdrawing. And make small course corrections regularly. It takes less energy to make small and minor course corrections than a large one. You know it's going to be a bumpy ride, so check in with your physical body regularly and take good care of your physical self and answer to your physical needs, and do not put off nourishing you and loving you. And again, focus on how far you have come in your life and how far you have come in your personal journey. And stop and really feel how incredible you are and how beautiful you are and how loving and lovable you are.